Samurai Shodown review. My name is Globko and Samurai Shodown has been one of my favorite fighting games since my childhood. But how does this 7th game in the main series stand amongst the other great fighting games of the modern age? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. I'll start by describing a few of its mechanics, trying to convey what sort of fighting game this is. Because if you're coming from anime fighters like Dragon Ball, or maybe something a bit more traditional like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, this game is its own beast. After mechanics, we'll talk about the different game modes, and we'll close it out with a couple of notes on the game's performance and presentation before giving it a final score. Let's get down to it. Samurai Shodown is a slow fighting game. A game where there are pretty much no combos, but every time something gets blocked, you stand to lose half of your health bar. It's a unique game for sure. It redefines the notion of a health bar for a lot of fighting game players. It's always been like this, but perhaps this year's edition of Samurai Shodown, it's even more obvious than previously, because a health lead like this means literally nothing if the opponent has his rage bar. The tides can be turned just like that. Every character has a light, medium, and heavy slash attacks. Heavy attacks can usually be punished pretty easily if they get blocked, while everything else is usually safe from any significant damage, except if the opponent reads one of your slashes and parries your sword. Every character can parry, and depending on the attack you parry, might even knock your blade out of your hands. At which point you can still block, punch, and kick, but you won't be able to unleash your most devastating moves. Unless you're playing Darly Dagger, I guess. Yeah. Every character also has a variety of kicks, which can be this game's fast pokes or full sweeps that knock down the opponent. And then we have the really powerful stuff. Every character has an ultimate attack that they can only attempt once per match. You don't need meter or anything, but you can only do this once, and if it gets blocked, that's it, you've lost your ultimate attack. When your rage bar is full, you can also unleash a weapon flipping technique. You can do this one as many times as you want for as long as you have a full rage bar. And if it connects, not only does it deal great damage, it also knocks the opponent's weapon out of their hands. And finally, once you enter rage mode, all of your attacks deal more damage, and you gain access to this devastating attack with an incredibly fast activation. As soon as you enter this rage mode, your opponent will most likely go on the defensive, as this is this game's strongest comeback mechanic, but if they don't, well, that's an easy health bar. All of this is punishable. All of these super moves, as well as a lot of the special moves, all of that can be punished. And because there's a lot that can be punished, traditionally Samurai Shodown has been a very passive game, where opponents are just sitting and blocking anything that comes at them, because they can always block and just follow through and punish the opponent. In this version of Samurai Shodown, though, grabs can be very annoying to deal with. You can't take a grab like in many other fighting games. You have to avoid them by jumping or stabbing your opponent before he grabs you, which counters this sitting down and just waiting for your opponent to make a mistake type of playstyle. You've still got defensive options. You can roll to either side when you wake up. You have a spot dodge that avoids any attack, but leaves you vulnerable afterwards. So sitting there and blocking isn't as efficient anymore, but you can still play defensively if you can read your opponent correctly, and in my opinion, that just makes for a much better fighting game. Now, we've talked about general mechanics, but of course every character in the roster has their own abilities. The roster consists of 16 characters plus 4 upcoming DLC, which you can download for free if you get on that store before June 30th. You don't even need to buy the game, you just have to get the season pass. It's free, so why not? Each character has their own strengths and weaknesses. Some have uppercut type abilities, some have stronger projectiles, and some have unique gimmicks that I haven't seen in any other fighting game. And this makes learning matchups something important, similar to games like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. And it also means that if you're not having fun with a character, maybe someone else will be the trigger you need to start loving this game. And a lot of this game's longevity is gonna come from this, from mastering different characters, from learning different matchups. So I guess in the end, that's not so different from other fighting games. But that's why we love them. Let's talk about a few of the offline modes present in Samurai Shodown. Story mode doesn't deserve to have the word story in its name. It's pretty much an old school arcade mode where you battle a series of opponents and you get 1 or 2 unique cutscenes which look roughly like this. You can beat it in 30 minutes and you're meant to clear it with every character. The problem is, this is a very outdated way of telling a story. It is boring to go through the same fights, the same story every single time, just with a different character who has a slightly different take on what's happening. Also, there's barely any plot in the game. It is loyal to the old Samurai Shodown games to a fault. And of course, it's all topped off with a frustrating and unfair boss fight at the end, which you might beat without a problem or get stuck in depending on the character you pick. It was really fun doing this for the first time. I felt nostalgic playing through an old school arcade mode. The second time was less fun, and from there it's just grinding for trophies. As a story mode, I I really don't think this one delivers, especially when fighting games have evolved so much in the way of storytelling. This feels trapped in its roots in a way that is just very unhealthy. And that's not everything there is to do offline. You've also got the battle menu, which includes some traditional modes like versus, time trials, and survival, and also the gauntlet. The gauntlet is where you pick a character and you must defeat the entire roster in one-round fights. You only have one life, and yes, the boss fight does show up at the end. There's also the dojo, where you fight ghosts of other players. Ghosts are AI-controlled characters that are supposed to learn how to play from real players. While you're playing offline, it is reading your behavior and learning how you play, and then that ghost is shared online. But do they accurately represent the players they learned from? Having fought my own ghost multiple times over the course of this game, I'd say not really. There are a few habits that I can identify, but most of the time I can't recognize my playstyle in this ghost at all. So I imagine the same is going on for everyone else out there. Of course, this game is complete with a tutorial that teaches you the mechanics pretty well, even if it doesn't teach you how to use them very efficiently. If you want to get better at Samurai Shodown, you're definitely gonna have to watch some videos. And it also has a training mode for practicing different scenarios. And that's pretty much all you can do offline, which in my opinion doesn't amount to much value. When you look at these menus, it seems like there's a lot to do, but it's not necessarily fun. Outside of story mode, you're also not working towards unlocking any collectibles, and when you have game modes that are centered around fighting the AI, you gotta give players some other incentives, some sort of progression, especially in a game like Samurai Shodown, where reading your opponents is key to winning a fight. Reading AI is pretty much impossible, which makes the fighting not that fun. So with that, we move on to the online. Fighting other players in Samurai Shodown is a lot of fun. The mechanics make this a tremendous fighting game from a competitive standpoint. So if you're the type of player who just wants to buy this to play online, this game delivers in the mechanics department, but in the netcode department, maybe not so much. It's not a bad netcode, it's just very hit and miss. You might have a terrific connection with someone who lives near you, but once you start playing someone further away, you're gonna feel the game getting a bit sluggish. And that's not even to mention Wi-Fi. This game does not handle Wi-Fi well, but I can't really blame it for that. It feels like it's a very flimsy netcode. It's very hit and miss every time you queue for a matchmaking section. You don't know what you're getting. You can set up a few connection restrictions before initiating matchmaking, but even then, unstable connections will get past those filters and start acting up during the actual match. And there's no indicator for ping or frame delay during the battle itself or before you even enter the battle. So it's gonna hit you randomly. That said, if you're willing to endure the occasional laggy match, you've got casual match lobbies which you can set up to play with random players or with your friends, and you've got ranked matches if you're like me and you need to see a number go up every time you win. Finally, we'll close it off by talking about performance and presentation. Now, a big turnoff for me in Samurai Shodown are the loading screens. This game has too many loading screens, and they're not really short. This is especially evident when going through the gauntlet or story mode, and it feels unacceptable in a way. And it's not like the game blows my mind visually. It's going for a style, and I think it succeeds for the most part, but it's not like it's delivering groundbreaking graphics or textures, so the load times just feel bad. It's a fighting game. Everything that stands in the way of fighting ends up detracting from the experience. The visual style, as I mentioned, is something that I enjoy a lot. I like the look of it, though some textures or effects feel unfinished, and they're not actually unfinished, it's a stylistic choice. But for instance, the fire burning on the rage meter, well, why does it look so low res? Well, because it's a style choice, I guess, but it's one that I don't agree with. There are a few attacks that share this issue, but again, that's kind of what they were going for. On the sound design department, I got nothing but good things to say. I think the sound really helps deliver that feeling of heavy blows and half of your health bar melting away. And the soundtrack, it's also solid. It's not intrusive. I hate it when fighting game soundtracks are too over the top because you'll hear them over and over as you fight and you'll get sick of them. Samurai Shodown strikes a nice balance of having good tracks but also having them just sit on the background. And with that, it's time to score this game. If you're new here, we use letters as our review scores. F and E are for the bad games, D and C are mediocre or just okay, B and A are the good games. And this is my score for Samurai Shodown.
これよりは抗議のに若輩者はここまでにいたせい
For as much as I love this fighting system as a product, it's hard to recommend this game. They had a perfect opportunity to introduce a bunch of new people to Samurai Shodown lore, but they've limited themselves to an old school arcade mode as their story. You can literally learn more about these characters by watching the silly video I made about what your main says about you than by playing this game's story mode. And even if you're the type of player who just wants to go online and play ranked, the connections are too hit and miss to make it enjoyable in the long run. I wholeheartedly recommend this game. If you've you've got a community to play this with offline, or if you can get together with friends and learn it, or even a group of friends that live nearby that you can play online, because if you live too far apart, I don't think the netcode is gonna hold up. So for the general population, I think even though this game has an amazing core, there are too many rough edges and that kind of ruins it. But that's my opinion on Samurai Shodown 2019. If you've played this game and you've got an opinion yourself, please leave it in the comments. That way whoever comes to this review trying to figure out whether or not they should purchase it, they not only have my opinion, they have yours as well. And I look forward to reading it. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Lolku and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!